This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road, Jack, Finding the Zodiac. I'd like to welcome from the other room of my house today, Nolan Del Campo.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Oh my goodness. We are finally this is the only statement for the slide that is on here today, and that is that Jack passes away in August of 2006. Now, I want to say that I remembered it being the 8th. I did a search through the presentation, could not seem to find his date of death, but I want to say that it was somewhere between the 8th and the 16th of August, because that's when we start to see other things shake and move. But I really want everybody to focus on the fact that we're going to see one more communication that I believe is from the Zodiac Killer, but it had been postmarked in 1990. And we have talked about it a couple times throughout this presentation, but it is the last communication, I believe, that we see written by the author, the Zodiac Killer. And so it is not coincidental that we have Jack passing away in 2006 and we stop seeing these letters. I haven't seen any other letters come in that make me think that there's somebody adopting or copycatting or attempting to mimic the Zodiac Killer. Otherwise, we'd continue to see communications pop up if it were, let's say, a group programmed to write a particular way to make us believe that it was the Zodiac. But nonetheless, not coincidental. Jack has passed and letters are done, right?
Yep. And
we kind of walked through a brief breakdown of, Dennis turning Jack in 2001 and 2, DNA is done. Jack's is not completed within that parameter. Dennis tells Jack that nobody believes him. Jack turns over the storage shed in 2003 to give Dennis more evidence. 2002 and 3, he's reaching out to Tom Voight, who Dennis Kaufman is also having an issue with at that particular point in time. So Jack was very well aware of Tom Voight. Trying to get his identity out there. 2005, we see the Tim Miller letter where he says, my identity has been given out, basically, and why nobody knows is really secret or key to this, which is, I think, my premise. This entire presentation is why are we not looking at the people that are potential good suspects instead of hosting websites upon websites on fake suspects?
Right.
That's where my go ahead.
Question. When did the Aphrodite Jones program on Zodiac featuring you and Dennis, when did that come out?
I want to say that 2010 or 11. So we aired it shortly after I released my opinion. Aphrodite Jones came in and filmed at my house, actually, for some of the segments. Yeah. But I didn't even come into the case until 2009. So that was relatively quick for her to have jumped on board and done a segment on the Zodiac.
It was a well-done segment.
It was very good. And quite frankly, at the end of it,
star too.
Well, Dennis and Jack are the stars. Yeah. I'm just the expert.
You added some humor and whatnot. It was good.
Yeah, we did get to doing some giggling and laughing and some, shocking exercises for her to see that it's hard to stop doing the things that are ingrained in us. And the Zodiac took the best whack at it, but even then we would see him fall apart, right, and start writing with his own natural handwriting, which I tell everybody, you can only disguise for so long. The brain's going to flip out something that is your normal at some point, somewhere throughout that letter, no matter how hard you try to disguise that. So right after Jack dies, I say right after. So if he dies August of 2006, by March of 2007, we finally see the Christmas postcard come out, which I want to say it's almost kind of like a marketing strategy, because we have the 2007 Jake Gyllenhaal movie coming out. So did they sit on this card, waiting to pop it out because they had a new movie coming out? So this would raise more hubbub and media awareness and get everybody excited again over a card they had never seen. I mean,
who put it out?
I want to say, let me read this off because it'll tell us who it is. So inside the Christmas card was a copy of 2 postal carrier keys with serial numbers that coincided. Now, Harriet Suchet declared that the postal numbers on these keys were to the New Jersey state area and an international master postal key. These keys were universal and believed to have come from a military supply, or at least that was Harriet's take on it. Voight says they're from a man in Eureka. So these were post office box keys, but they have 2 different numbers on them. So I'm not sure why anybody would have 2 different post office box keys with 2 different numbers that would track to 2 different places. That in itself is interesting, unless that was just another way for Voight to steer things in another direction. So basically the Christmas card has Groucho Marx type, glasses with
disguise.
The big nose and the mustache, and he's sitting in front of a jackrabbit, no less.
Jack.
We've got all those Jack references, and it says
a cute little rabbit.
And it says, "From your secret pal, can't guess who I am yet. Well, look inside and you'll find out that I'm gonna keep you guessing. Happy holidays anyway." So again, that little joke feature that the Zodiac liked to do. So the Christmas card from the Zodiac postmarked 1990, but was not produced until March 2007. It's supposedly circulated in the postal system. It says that it circulated in the postal system until this time per the Wikipedia source, but the dates may be portrayed by the source incorrectly. I thought that this had gone to the editor and had sat at the San Francisco Chronicle, amongst other lost mail or what have you, I thought, until they discovered it.
I thought it was discovered at the Chronicle.
Yeah. So up until that point, though, obviously, I mean, it was mailed. What did I say? Did I have a date on this? No, it just says received. Received March 2007, even though the postmark was 1990. And I get it is a Christmas card, so it does. I think it says December, early December, though. And so the use of the zip code below the address is a form that's used both by Jack and the other identified communications. Again, placement on the envelope is also identifying not just how you write the words upon it, but how you use that space on the envelope. And I do find that those were similar. This is about the time that Dr. D'Antonio came from Arizona, so 2007, to blame Arthur Lee Allen again, by saying he sees the name of Allah secretly embedded in the Zodiac letters. And Professor Dewhurst from Northern Arizona University came and took rolls of film that was found in Jack's belongings in 2008 from Dennis in order to develop them. I'm not going to hop into, 2009. I also discovered Chris Pickle from CBS 13 came out of Arizona as well. I don't know if there was some big push or ploy for Arizona people to want to jump on this California case. I mean, albeit the Zodiac is perceived by most just to be 5 to 7 victims, right? Attempted victims, 5 murders, 2 that survived. if it was just that, why is there so much interest coming out of Arizona? I asked, right? The only thing I could really think of is that when Jack was a security guard at Arizona University, I believe that was during the time they were cataloging the different strains of anthrax. So is there a connection to these, doctors, professors, and media people coming out of the woodworks from Arizona and wanting to cling on to Dennis, if you will? I know that Stephen Dewhurst wanted to write a book, so he paid Dennis for those rights. Chris Pickle, I guess the benefit there was getting the airtime, right, with this spectacular story on Jack being the suspect, which brought her a lot of strife and turmoil. At least she's portrayed it that way. And then Stephen Dewhurst, or Dr. D'Antonio, boy, me and him had it out. I say me and him, that was so wrong. Him and I had it out a few times. But he's much like Tom Voigt, right? They all want to push their suspect and then degrade. In fact, I'm talking to somebody right now who puts up with Tom Voigt's site, but definitely says, he likes to stay clear of what I refer to as the trolls.
So real quick on Dewhurst, he never did write the book, did he?
He did.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're going to see another portion of it here in this next couple slides. But yes, he did. And he did like most others did, which was, let me turn that phone off. Good Lord. I'm not getting links. Can you have Juan resend? I emailed him already. Juan, Lindsay says she's not getting the links, but I don't understand it's the same link,
It's the
girl.
same link. Yeah.
Yeah.
She should have started. It's
always the same link. Go back. He doesn't resend. Sorry, guys, for taking that quick break.
Okay, another question. Right.
Yes.
Whatever happened to the rolls of film?
Some were given to the FBI. Some were given to Stephen Dewhurst. Some of those negatives were returned by Stephen Dewhurst. Some were kept. He claimed he had the right to keep them because he bought the rights to write the book, which I thought was pure crap. That didn't entitle you to the evidence. Yeah. Yeah. The FBI, all of the film that they produced a whole bunch of families and kids and all kinds of things. And Dennis says, I don't know one of them. They're not family. I have no idea why these pictures or these rolls of film are in Jack's belongings with all these kids and stuff on it, because they weren't anybody that Dennis knew. Maybe
he had secret families.
Right. I don't know. Only 222 and below. It's not showing
Jack
up
got around
anymore. I don't know. In the middle of the show. Juan, can you send Lindsay a link? Email her a link again. I don't know what she says. It's not showing up in her. She says it's not showing up on her StreamYard. I don't know what that means because.
Well, he just resent it to her email, I think.
Okay. Just sent. Okay. Now we can get back to what we're doing. All right. So aside from that, we saw Deborah Perez come out and blames her dead adopted father. I'm again trying to figure out. Now, these are old words, guys. We've come a long way since then. We know some of these answers. But why everyone is rushing to conceal the identity of Jack by blaming dead men. The only thing that I could think of at the time is that anthrax was the reason. If they could close Zodiac on somebody who is already dead, then it could never be connected to anthrax. And possibly this entire scheme or syndicate of individuals could not be found out because it would not be linked. Mm-hmm. I did find an interesting article from the Vallejo Times-Herald. This is an old one. It's going to take us back to the Cecilia Shepard and Brian Hartnell, and it's out of Vallejo. Actually, so Mare Island. It looks like San Francisco Bay Naval Shipyard. So this is literally coming out of the Mare Island newspaper. September, it looks like 10th of 1969. I can barely read it.
September 69, yeah.
We're going to find some things interesting in here, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to read all of this clear enough. But it says multiple wounds, fatal, companion listed as serious. Authorities give out more details on merciless attack by Jane Smith, Times-Herald staff writer. So Napa Cecilia Shepard, the 22-year-old co-ed stabbed by a hooded killer at Lake Berryessa Saturday, lost her fight for life at 3:45 p.m. Monday in Queen of the Valley Hospital. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Robert Shepard of Riverside, were at her side when she succumbed to multiple stab wounds inflicted by an unknown assailant who attacked the girl and her boyfriend, Brian Hart, now 20, as they sat by the lakeside 1/4 of a mile north of park headquarters at an evening picnic. She was... Go ahead.
Just another tie-in for Riverside. I didn't know her parents were from Riverside. So was she from Riverside?
Yes. So there was So Sherry Jo Bates went to Riverside Community College, and she and Cecilia Shepard went to Riverside University, I believe it was. But there was
Riverside. Okay.
Yeah, there was some type of connection, I thought, as though they knew each other, or somebody affiliated with Cecilia Shepard had attended a wedding of some sort with the Bates, or vice versa. There was some talk about some connection between them, or the possibility of them having crossed paths in Riverside.
And Brian Hartnell relocated to Riverside too.
Right.
And last I heard, I don't know if he's probably retired by now, but he was practicing law in Riverside.
Right. We did try to reach out to him, but he did not respond back.
Right.
It says she was knifed mercilessly 7 times in the back and abdomen. I thought she was stabbed more times than that, but so 7 times back and abdomen. Hartnell's condition was listed as serious by a hospital spokesman. His parents, Mr. and Mrs. Calvin Hartnell of Troutdale, Oregon. So it looks like they're out of Troutdale, Oregon. Kept a constant vigil at the hospital, as had the Shepards. Since early Sunday. Hartnell was stabbed 10 times in the back. See, so I thought the female...
I thought she was stabbed more often than him.
I know. I was under the impression that too. But again, we're paying attention to a newspaper who may not necessarily have those numbers correctly, right?
Right. Yes.
Something for us to argue over. Right. No suspect. Sheriff's investigators said they have not yet identified a suspect in the killing. Something to the murder of 3 Vallejo residents in 2 separate incidents last December. Linked to the murder of 3 Vallejo residents in 2 separate incidents last December and July. And all points bulletin was issued to law enforcement agencies throughout the nation, describing the killer as having brown hair, about 5'9" to 6 feet tall, 20 to 30 years of age, 200 to 250 pounds, with a husky voice. Now, except for the 20 to 30-year-old part, that does pretty much describe Jack. Moving on.
He had that hood on, and was that description coming from Hartnell?
I think that it was supposedly coming from the victims at Blue Rock Springs and Lake Herman Road. The one, or Lake Herman Road, Majot, that survived. But here's the thing: the headlights.
I think.
Yeah, the headlights are blasting towards the car in pitch darkness, right? So he's got headlights. He's not going to see Jack walking up on him, and he's not going to really see Jack at all, because Jack is shining a flashlight into the car, right into his eyes, right? Because that's what he's using at that particular point in time. So
Joe also had multiple layers of clothing on, which I found odd.
Very odd. And of course, the fact that he claims to have looked up and back as the assailant was getting into the car. So the light inside the car gave him a visual of what the person looked like. I just don't know if somebody attacked me, if I'd have the wherewithal to even raise my head. Like, what am I asking to get? Like, oh, you're not dead yet? Come back. Let me kill you. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm playing dead.
No doubt.
I'm certainly not looking up to see if I can make an identification because witnesses don't survive.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
So that's where that age range comes from, is Majot, I believe. According to the description given by Hartnell, the attacker was wearing dark clothing, a shoulder length, you guys. And I want you to keep in mind Dennis's hood, or Jack's hood, that was found in the PA system. It stopped at the shoulders with a cutoff. A shoulder length hood with holes for eyes, glasses, and clip-on glasses, which showed through the hood. He flaunted the gun sight emblem on the hood where it came over his chest. So once again, we're talking about exactly what Dennis found in that PA system. It stopped at the shoulders and it went down the chest with the emblem, obviously, on the chest. Let's see. He said he had escaped from Deer Lodge State Prison, Montana, and had killed a guard during his escape. However, the story was checked by authorities and proved false. So, of course, I mean, he also said he needed money to get to Mexico. He never went to Mexico, but Mexico was kind of a common theme that we were hearing throughout these communications.
Why is he, if he plans to kill him, why is he giving him this erroneous information? Why give him any information at all?
Oh, we've got Lynn's Mac today. Good morning, Lindsay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, yes, I can. We're covering an old article, but I found some interesting information in it. So I'm just reading through that just to sift out what it was that I found. So Park Ranger Sergeant White was the first to reach the young couple after park headquarters was notified of their injuries. And I'm ad-libbing some of these words you cannot read. What's that?
Yeah, it looks a little blurry.
It's very blurry. It's very hard. Fisherman Ronald Fong of San Francisco with his 9-year-old son pulled his boat into an inlet near the isolated shoreline about 6:30 p.m. He cut his motor and in the silence heard cries from Hartnell. He pulled his boat to within 20 yards of the shore and saw the couple bloodied and crying out that they had been stabbed and robbed. Fearing trickery, I don't know how much he got away with because I felt like he didn't take anything. So what did he want? Change, keys? I don't know. What were they robbed of? Fearing trickery, Fong headed to Rancho Monticello to alert authorities. Park rangers, Land and White were summoned. So I wanted to bring up the fact that it talks about Monticello because we have the cheese letter that discusses. I know we always giggle over the cheese letter because we don't really know if it's real or not, and I can't find an image of it anymore. It's clearly been taken down for whatever purpose Tom Boyd decided it wasn't necessary, but definitely discussed Monticello in the progression of that letter. So I find it interesting that we are seeing Monticello in one of the attacks, and then there's a communication that was deemed a hoax or taken down, or maybe it was just a hoax Tom Boyd and his crew was trying to pull on Dennis and I. It says that, let's see, free self. White said when he arrived at the scene, Hartnell had freed himself from a rope which bound his hands and had crawled about 100 yards. Ranger Dennis Land brought him back to where Miss Shepard was basically writhing in agony. White and Land wrapped the couple in blankets and attempted to quiet someone while waiting for an ambulance. While White said he kept them talking in an effort to keep their minds off their pain and also to obtain information for the sheriff's office. He said they were seated near shore on their picnic when suddenly a man with a hood over his face and an automatic pistol in his hand came toward them. The hooded man said he was an ex-con from Colorado and wanted a car and money. Hartnell said he only had 75 cents. So this is what I'm saying. Why did they call it a robbery? He had 75 cents. But he did have a car, and he gave the man the keys for his car and told him it was up the road, White recalled. So I'm not sure if those keys were ever located again, or if that was one of the clues or trophies that the Zodiac took and was in fact missing and never seen again. I'm not sure what that was ended up being. It says both tied. The man said, I have to tie you up. I have to. Here's that statement again. I have to tie you up. I have to kill you. Bates had to die. He had some plastic clothesline cut into. Now, this plastic clothesline is where Sandy Betts comes in talking about the clothesline. And we've seen clothesline used definitely in some of these crimes.
She showed us some clothesline, that white clothesline stuff. Yeah.
And pre-cut. And Charles mentioned that Jack used to carry pre-cut cord in his trunk of his vehicle that was not big enough to tie anything down other than probably a person. He said, I think about 2 to 3 feet long pieces of this white cord.
The wrists.
Right? Cut into, this actually gives, I can't see the number, cut into so many foot strips, which he tied them with. So it's not, I can't really make out what that word says. Cut into something foot, 1, 2, 3, I don't know, foot strips, which he tied them with, their hands behind their backs and then between their legs. So he hog tied them. And we know Jack's, affinity for hogs after killing all those ones. Then the man said, I'm going to have to stab you people. I'm going to have to. Once again, Hartnell said, please, me first. I'm chicken. I couldn't stand to see her stabbed. The man told him, I'll do just that. He stabbed Hartnell until he passed out. The poor girl, she just has to watch. Then he knifed her until she fainted. When he stabbed Hartnell, it was deliberate. When he stabbed the girl, he laughed in a frenzy, White said Hartnell told him. He said Miss Shepherd was writhing on the ground in agony and kept pleading with him to give her something to kill the pain or knock her out. While White, who has patrolled the lake for 10 years, described the scene as unbelievable. I've seen a lot of things, people cut by boat blades and such, but never anything like these two nice kids cut in pieces, he told a Times Herald reporter. Cut into pieces. I'm not sure if that was just sensationalism.
That is sense. No, they were stabbed. They weren't cut into pieces.
I know. So, again, with the news. The assailants, termed a psychopathic killer by authorities, called
That's what it sounds like.
Department. What's that?
Name.
Huh?
Anyway.
I get a couple words from Lindsay. So he called the Napa Police Department about 7:30 p.m. and said, I want to report a murder or a double murder. They are 2 miles north of park headquarters. They were in a white Volkswagen Carmagia, and then he didn't hang up the phone. In a quiet voice, he added, I'm the one that did it. The dispatcher heard the phone put down, but not hung back up on the receiver. The call came from a payphone with a 255 prefix, believed to be at the Napa, California wash. Fingerprints taken from the phone booth are being checked for identification. The message written on the Carmaguillo was the most apparent clue. I think it says clue is the Vallejo slayings written on the white. It says white, but right door with a black felt pen were dates of the two Vallejo shootings, December 20th and July 4th, along with the date of the Berryessa attack at the time. 5 p.m. The message was signed with a crossed. It's going to be the cross circle, obviously.
Right.
Used
Zodiac
to represent.
symbol.
Yeah. Used to represent. Now I like theirs. This, they say, used to represent the crosshairs in a telescope gun sight. Sheriff investigators removed the door from the vehicle and brought it to the sheriff's department for examination. Whew, that was a hard one.
Yeah.
My goodness, I had to strain.
Yeah, I was wondering if they were going to mention to me, which is key evidence, is the writing on the car door with reference to the other murders and the dates.
Right.
So
he
it's
wanted
obviously
to be known.
the same person.
Clearly.
He makes it clear.
He wants to be known for what it is that he's doing. That's for sure. But that description of the hood was pretty much just, straightforward. It stopped at the shoulders, as does the one that Jack had in the PA system. It donned the gun sight symbol on the front of it that came down the chest. And it's square-ish. Not square on top, but square-ish. Instead of being, I'm guessing, rounded or pointed as some executioner hoods are. I did find some additional handwriting I thought was interesting because it obviously gives us more to look at. Jack does definitely seem to have many different ways that he can write. I want to see. Let's see. So this one is to Gary. It's now Monday, 2 p.m. And we should be out of here in another hour. So should be there tomorrow morning sometime. I'm confused by the note because it sounds like he's writing a letter that's not going to make it to the location before he does. Because he says he's going to be there tomorrow morning. The radiator didn't hold, had to take it to a radiator shop this morning and get it repaired. He had to put a strip of metal over the crack and solder it. We are going through Carson City, on through Highway 50 to Interstate 15, then 89 to Flagstaff. So we should be there when you get home from work Tuesday evening. Take care. Be good, but then he crosses out be good.
Nice.
Etc. Love, Unk. Nope, I knew that was bound to happen. That might very well be my mama coming in. All right, so per Stephen Dewhurst's book.
Real quick on that last slide, there was a number underneath John Tarrance. Was that a social security number?
Purportedly, and of course we see him now using John once again.
Yeah.
I don't know what the deal is with this man going back and forth as though he doesn't know who he is.
Well.
Yeah. 1 minute he's John, the next minute he's Jack, then he's whomever. I mean, he's used so many different aliases. Per Stephen Dewhurst's book in 2008, a DNA sample was taken from Chubb's cheek. So we had some questions about the DNA, and I said I didn't recall. Clearly, these are my notes from back in 2010 to 2013, so it's what I knew at that time. The DNA sample was taken from Chubb's cheek by FBI agents from San Antonio as he lay incomprehensibly in a rest home. The FBI thought it possible that it would be an important key to the puzzle, a piece that showed where the other parts fit. Chubb's was Jack's last living relative who shared the mitochondrial genes of Jack's mother and Chubb's sister, Ina. It would be the same DNA pattern that Jack would have carried in his hair. And then I wrote, why did the FBI engage the handwriting and everything Dennis threw at them, including the hood, if it wasn't a match? So if they did this in 2008, why did they continue to patronize Dennis? Clear into many of my reports, I gave something like 4 of them, right? So if it wasn't a match, and I'm sure they wouldn't have given, maybe they did give Dennis that information and the YouTube responder was correct in there was some sort of a match to a nephew or something like that. On one of the letters that would have led the FBI to continue into this investigation and seeking out information on Jack.
Yeah.
Because here we are 8 years later. I hear you now. Good morning. So yeah, what happened to this source of DNA? Was it ran? Was it put in CODIS? I do recall the FBI saying they couldn't put Jack's DNA into CODIS because he wasn't a criminal, which is clearly untrue based on the 3 different indictments that he had. And one was assault with a deadly weapon, including probation. So why wasn't his, I mean, when did we start taking people's DNA as a matter of fact?
I do not know. But yeah, he had a record. That's
100% he had a record.
He beat up a cop, didn't he?
Yeah, but the thing is that even when you ran his background reports, because his record were under different versions of his, it wasn't his name. When you run a background on him, you don't see that he has any arrests or convictions.
Okay.
Well, so strange that even focus on the SFPD in 2000. Oh, okay. So we focus on the SFPD in 2000 and their botching of Jack's DNA supplied on an envelope by Dennis to the FBI and subsequently to the SFPD. January 2009, this is when I'm contacted by Dennis Kaufman. He at the time is in the hospital recovering from an infection in his foot. And this is where I basically wanted to start to tell my story in regards to this case and how I got involved and what it really meant. So Dennis couldn't get to me for a little bit. Like I said, he was suffering from an infection in his foot, partially due to diabetes, I'm sure. And I was waiting for him to actually bring me the handwriting. So I called my mentor at the time, Bart Baggett. I was, I want to say it was probably about 7 or 8 months away from completing my apprenticeship when I contacted him. And of course, we had a decent conversation on the phone. He told me to take it on for entertainment value, but not to hold too much into it because he was working himself on a particular suspect, or should I say the daughter of a suspect that he was going to be writing a book about and doing a documentary on. And he offered to send me the Zodiac letters because I had no reference for them. I did not know where to obtain them, or, I was assuming that I would get the best versions from him because he was very familiar with the case. He happened to be working on another suspect. I didn't know at the time that he had actually done episodes on America's Most Wanted with John Walsh and with Tom Voigt, or that he had patronized Tom Voigt, but clearly that's probably where he got some of his information from. Either way, he sent me I want to say it was the Melvin Belli letter, one of the most disguised letters. I mean, of all the letters that you would send to somebody, I wouldn't task that. Maybe he gave it to me because I was an apprentice and I was still new and hoping that I wouldn't figure it out because it was so heavily disguised. But it became clear that you could break it down. And by the time I got to the bottom of that letter, we started to see that author revert back to some natural handwriting. And quite frankly, it was found in Jack's. So those characteristics that I was looking for, such as the cursive O with a loop in the center, all of these things could be found in Jack's printed writing as well. And I want to say I stayed up until about 4 o'clock in the morning, even though I had school the next day, probably even had a test. Who knows? I was lucky to actually make it through 2 degrees in psychology and legal assisting with a 3.875 while battling the enemies of the Zodiac Killer cases, because that's literally what it felt like. But I stayed up till 4 in the morning and I found more than 20 significant, and I would say fine/subtle traits that an individual would use in handwriting that was consistent between Jack and the Zodiac. So I was desperate to get more handwriting from Dennis. Dennis was desperate to have me look at his website and the evidence that he had collected and put together. I withheld from doing that until I could complete the handwriting examination. And then once I completed that and identified Jack as the possible author of these documents, so actually not possible, I identified him as the author of the Zodiac letters. And then the pressure was starting to be applied. Dennis really badly wanted me to climb onto CBS 13 News to render my opinion on the news. Bart Baggett did not want me to do such a thing. He actually came back and said the writing is too large. It's not the same author. He also made a statement, well, Jack was just a security guard. There's no way he could have perpetrated these crimes. Well, we have found out since then, Jack is so much more than just a security guard.
What's in it for Baggett to discredit your theory on Jack?
Well,
Is
the
he
interesting
jealous or
part,
what?
when I started the school, he was based out of Texas, and he had said, you have all of California. You're going to be one of the the only one in the school in California that's going to be your area. Inside of 10 months, all of a sudden, he and Beth both moved to the Los Angeles area, which I couldn't make any sense of. If you hadn't been planning to make this move and it happened last minute, at what point would you have, stated to me, or guess what? I'm moving into California and half the business is now going to be gone kind of situation. I think that because he was working on Deborah Perez and he had plans for, like I said, a documentary and to write a book, that this was going to be a money-making source for him. So he was upset that I wanted to come out and give my opinion on CBS 13 News, which at the time, when you're an apprentice and you're under contract with the school, I paid him something like 50% of my fees to peer review any work that I did. And it wouldn't matter what I thought about the handwriting. If his opinion differed from mine, I had to release his opinion, not mine.
Wow.
That was the contract. Dennis, however, couldn't afford to pay. So there was technically no contract. So we had a loophole there. And even though Bart Baggett had, at first he tried to intimidate me by telling me not to release my opinion. Then he went so far as to say I would be kicked out of the school. I would lose my tuition. So I was like physically sick to my stomach for a week. I'm 7 or 8 months away from finishing my apprenticeship, and this case that I didn't even ask for that's dropped in my lap, and I'm just seeing the truth and the evidence should cost me, my $12,000 in commission or cost me my right to finish becoming a document examiner. I mean, none of it seemed truly fair. Of course, I was then contacted by his suspect was Guy Ward Hendrickson, because Deborah Perez claimed that she was the daughter of him, that Bart Baggett said to me she showed the genetic predisposition to write like the Zodiac. She was in possession of Paul Stein's glasses. She had the hood. I got to hear all of this evidence she purportedly had in this case when she turned out to be a phony all the way around. And I was contacted by Jan Hendrickson, and she asked me to do an examination on her father's handwriting, which I did. And there's no way he wrote any of the Zodiac letters. Absolutely not. And then she gave me the family background, which was to include the fact that Deborah Perez was adopted. Her and I think 4 siblings or something were adopted by Jan's father, who married, I guess, and brought the mother who lived in Mexico with these kids on a dirt floor, as the story's told, brought them to the United States to give them a better life. And here's Deborah Perez trying to tarnish this man's name. But she's not genetically even related, so there's no genetic predisposition.
Yeah.
I mean, at
but
most...
It's funny, she sure got her 15 minutes of fame.
She got a lot more than 15 minutes. Boy, that news story went. I mean, she stood on the steps of the Chronicle with her disbarred attorney as her publisher or promoter, whatever you call those people. What was that? Anyway, so yeah, on the steps of the Chronicle, you got to see Sandy Betts there. Everybody turned out and showed up. It was a nice little crowd. That story went, I'm sure, all over the world. It was everywhere. And then purportedly she was given something like 100 hours. I don't know if that was true once again, but given 100 hours by the San Francisco PD in investigating her bull BS. Ooh, I was about to cuss because that makes me angry. And so they gave her all of this time only to have her deemed a fraud in the end. And she went away in the ether just as quick as any other person has when it comes to having made an identification or claiming that their dad did. Dennis never went into the ether. Dennis never just popped up for a year or so, made a big hubbub, and fell off the face of the earth. This man collectively worked for almost, I think, 13, 14 years on attempting to show and support the evidence that Jack had that made him the best suspect for the Zodiac Killer. Whereas all of these other people are kind of a fly in, fly out kind of thing. So let's see here. We talked about Chris Pickle. We talked about Bart, Deborah Perez. Oh, in the long run, when it came right down to it, about a week after I was threatened that I could lose my apprenticeship and my fees to the school, I was informed by Bart that because Dennis didn't pay me, it didn't preclude me from giving my opinion in that matter, since there was no contract basically between him, I, and Dennis, because Dennis couldn't afford to pay me and I was basically doing the work for free. So that meant that I could release my opinion. And he gave me that phone call, like I said, about a week after, telling me that I could be kicked out. So I'm sick to my stomach for a week. And then I hear from him that, nope, go ahead and give it. And guess what? No book, no documentary. Off into the ether, just like everybody else. Stephen Dewhurst did pretty much the same thing. Like I said, when he decided to keep the rolls of film, him and Dennis had a falling out. I haven't talked to Janice in a long time. I know that she moved a few times. I kept in contact with Christmas cards and stuff with her over the years. I want to say it's been a couple years since I talked to her, but it was definitely after I started the podcast. She was having some health issues. We dealt with Harry Phillips. Everybody's heard me talk about that phone call when I asked why Jack's DNA wasn't ran for the 20 on 20 episode with Arthur Lee Allen and all these other suspects. 8 suspects, to include most of the fake suspects that are found on Voight's website, was excluded for possible DNA matches. Aphrodite Jones, she came in 2010, 2011 to film the investigation discovery episode of True Crimes on the Zodiac Killer. She made a comment at the end of her episode that her contacts at the FBI confirmed the handwriting was a match. She says this in that actual episode. Now, Tom Voight and his crew then flipped that on the message board and tried to say that Dennis and I were her FBI contacts. No, we're not the FBI contacts, nor did we ever tell anybody the FBI said. I've been nothing but honest about the supposed opinion letter, which was ridiculous. I've never seen anything written so short and sweet on anybody's handwriting that said Jack may have written it, Jack may not have written it.
Great.
Yeah, I've been nothing more than honest about that. So I know that when they try to accuse Aphrodite Jones of stating that her contacts from the FBI were Dennis and I, that he's just dumb. They're dumb. They're just looking to muddy up the waters and make us look like we're the ones telling her. She's not going to believe us. She's not going to take our words for it. And I'm sure that she's all up there in Hollywood with all of these true crimes. And she has contacts probably in law enforcement all over the United States. I wouldn't doubt. We delivered negatives to Mitzi Roberts at the LAPD in the Black Dahlia case. That poof, off into the ether. Not only did we lose some of the negatives as well, but Mitzi Roberts was told not to investigate Jack as a suspect. So I don't know if LAPD was just done wasting any money on this case, but it sounds to me like that's a pretty harsh way to say screw you to all the victims' family members.
Yes. Wasn't Mitzi Roberts kind of enthusiastic at first, but it was her higher-ups, her superiors that kind of quashed it?
Yes, she was very interested. In fact, when she received the position in cold cases, she made the comment, like myself, when I watched the Jake Gyllenhaal version of the Zodiac Killer, she said, "Oh, I'm going to solve the Black Dahlia case." She goes, "I had no reason to believe that I would, but I said this out loud to my friends and everybody." But that's kind of the same thing I did with the Zodiac. I was like, oh my God, they didn't figure out who it was. They didn't solve it. What in the world? I totally can solve this case. And I had no business saying that either, because I had no idea. And I certainly wasn't a document examiner in 2007 when I saw it. We have dealt with, let's see. Oh, we're down to about the last minute. Okay, so I'm going to hold up on continuing with that. Is there anything else that you would like to add? And we'll just continue on with my story when we come back and all the things that we've gone through.
Sounds good to me.
Awesome possum. So anything fun planned for today?
Oh, I think I'm going to take the rest of the day off.
You're not going to Tahoe?
No, I was thinking about it. My buddy kind of flaked on me.
I was wondering.
Yeah, and I don't want the hotels go way up on the weekends.
Yes, they do. That is for sure.
But we played golf yesterday.
Oh, did you win?
Oh, we don't really keep score. We both played well though.
Good. So you just basically you're playing against yourself. No
Yes,
competition.
just trying to improve, trying to make pars. Birdie
That's
for
awesome.
lucky. Oh, my buddy almost had a hole in one on the first hole. He knocked
Really?
it landed a foot from the hole. The shot.
Aw, that's an in-your-face moment.
Yeah, no. So you got a birdie.
There, but not there. All right, everybody, you have a wonderful weekend. We will see you next Friday. Thank you for being here again, Nolan. Peace.
Thank you, and thanks for the use of your living room.
Oh,